So delves are still one of the easiest and quickest ways to gear up in Season 1 of the War Within, but they've gone through a ton of balancing changes, whether it's down to just balancing the damage and health of enemies, or capping how many levels you can get on Bran, to then bug fixing Bran, to then more than doubling his damage. There's been a ton of balance changes that have pretty much completely changed the balancing of delves depending on if you're doing it as a solo or if you're doing it with a group. Now with all of these balance changes, it's become pretty confusing on how to most efficiently or most easily complete high tier delves. So in this video, I want to go over a full journey of getting to level 80, starting your delve journey, and all of the most efficient and easiest ways to go through farming those high tier delves, and just generally how to get the most out of delves. So the first thing you're going to want to do when you hit level 80 is to go get your weekly coffer keys, and you can get 4 from different weekly activities, whether that be picking up weekly quests in Dornegal, or completing the open world events like the theater event, or doing your special operations where you complete 3 world quests in a zone. It unlocks another world quest, you go complete that. That'll give you a chest. It'll also give you a coffer key. So you're going to want to go do that to get your 4 weekly coffer keys. This will also be giving you some decent starting gear, because you're also going to want to do other content to be able to get up to, let's say, at a minimum 560 to 570 item level. Even that is a bit low item level for doing the higher tiers of delves, but you can get away with being like 570 and just playing well, especially when you're in a group. So whether that be going and doing like LFR, or doing some heroic dungeons, or doing other open world activities, you're going to want to get to, let's say, 570 item level. So once you've obtained an adequate item level, you can start your delving journey. And the first thing you're going to need to do is to unlock Delve Tier 8. This is the highest tier that will give you higher item level gear. So going above Tier 8 will not increase any of the loot you're getting. And if you have, say, a 570 item level, you should be able to solo up to Tier 8 pretty easily. It's not until Tier 8 where there is a massive difficulty jump. If you're having problems with this, you can usually find groups that are going through the different tiers of delves to get up to Tier 8 as well. And also while doing this, make sure to not do any bountiful delves. You'll be able to see the bountiful delves as the glowing delve doors. There'll be one up in each zone on a daily basis. Make sure not to do any of those until you're at Tier 8. So you've gone through your delves, you've unlocked Tier 8, now you can start your bountiful delves. Now, as I mentioned at the start of the video, there's been a ton of balancing throughout delves. Balancing to Bran, balancing to tons of enemies, depending on if you're in a group or you're solo. So the balancing, the damage, the health, pretty much everything in delves has been pretty heavily changed since the start of Season 1. And after playing a bunch of Tier 8 delves, even past the most recent changes, it's still significantly easier to complete these higher tier delves with a group of players. So going and trying to do these solo, even if you have like a max level Bran and you're pretty well geared, which you probably won't be if you're on a newer level 80 character, even if you have all of that, these delves are still very difficult, and they're significantly harder solo if you're certain classes or certain specs. So say a rep paladin would be significantly easier than another spec or class that has a lot less personal sustainability. And then you have things like tanks, like a blood DK, shouldn't have any difficulty soloing any of these because you're pretty much unkillable if you play correctly. Now with all of that being said, I would just recommend when you're going and doing your Tier 8 bountiful delves to just go look for a group in the group finder. There are tons of groups always looking for these, so you can either try to join one or start up your own. Starting up your own is generally pretty easy. You'll probably find a healer and other DPS very quickly, so if you're not playing a tank, just make sure to switch the title to looking for tank when you're only looking for a tank, and you usually should be able to find a group pretty quickly. And if you go in with a group with a healer, with 3 DPS and a tank, you also have Bran with you depending on whoever the leader is, you're going to be able to go through these delves pretty easily. Unless you pull too much, you're probably not going to die. The bosses can be difficult and enemies will be pretty tanky, but it'll generally be pretty easy to go through these delves. And because of some of the recent tuning, you can even go into these delves with 4 DPS and a healer, just because the enemies are hitting a lot less hard, especially in groups, than they were previous to these changes. So now these enemies are hitting a lot less hard. Even though they're still hitting decently hard, you can survive through it, especially with a healer and 4 DPS, you should generally be fine. These enemies are just a lot more tanky. Just some of the random elites going through a lot of these delves will feel like you're facing a boss, not because of damage or mechanics, but just strictly because of their health. So 4 DPS and a healer is also a pretty good strategy to go with. So you've gotten to 80, you've gotten your coffer keys, you've went and unlocked tier 8 of delves, you've gone into a bountiful delve with a group, you've completed it, you've looted the chest at the end, and you've used one of your coffer keys. This will be giving you gear. You can not only get 584 gear from the blue chests that you don't need keys to open, those will also be warbound until equipped. You can get those, but using your key on the chest will always give you a 603 piece of gear, and looting any of those chests can also give you a Delver's Bounty map. Now these maps are just randomly obtained through any of the bountiful delves, and they go off of what tier of delve you're currently in. So this is another reason why you don't want to do bountiful delves before your tier 8, because once you activate this map, the next delve of that tier will give you an additional chest that doesn't require a key, and that chest will give you even higher tier of loot. Like I mentioned, you'll get a 603 piece of gear from using your key, but if you get a Delver's Bounty map and complete another delve, that will give you a 610 piece of gear, which is on the hero track, meaning it's on the next upgrade track compared to the other piece of gear you could be getting. So this is actual heroic raid tier loot, and this is going to be incredibly strong. Doing a lot of these delves is basically the easiest way to get hero track gear currently. Not only that, but you'll also be getting some other loot from that chest, including some higher tier crests. So getting those Delver's Bounty maps are incredibly good. Also, make sure to not click off that buff, because using a Delver's Bounty map, it gives you a buff, and it seems like you can click that buff off and you'll lose that Delver's Bounty map. So make sure not to do that either. Also, 2 small tips. If you get a Delver's Bounty map and use it, you don't need to go do a bountiful delve to get the chest at the end. So let's say you get it on your 4th bountiful delve of the day and you want to go get that piece of loot today, you can just do any tier 8 delve and you'll get that chest at the end. So it doesn't have to be in a bountiful delve. And also, there is a random event that can pop up in any of the bountiful delves you're doing. If you've played Diablo 4, think of something like the Butcher. If you've done Nightmare Dungeons, it's kind of like that. But if that event pops up and you die doing it, make sure to go back in, because that random event that pops up will drop an item on the ground for you to loot. That item on the ground can give you very high tier loot, either 603 or even 610 gear, and that thing can give you a Delver's Bounty map. And I don't want to fully spoil this event because it is pretty cool. You will absolutely notice when it happens, but a lot of groups will wipe to this because it is pretty difficult. Just make sure to go back in and loot that, because I have gotten this event in a group before and nobody else in the group knew that this still drops an item on the ground even if you fail it. So make sure to keep an eye out for that. So you've gotten to level 80, you went and got your weekly coffer keys, you went and got up to tier 8 delves, you've done your bountiful delves and used up all of your keys, and at this point you may think, well, I have no more keys for the week, so I'm just pretty much done with running these delves for this week. But there are some additional ways to potentially get more coffer keys. Now the first one is just always check world quests, because world quests can randomly give you coffer key shards as the reward. Now usually the world quests will give you 25 and you'll need 100 to get another coffer key. So you'll need 4 of those world quests, and usually they'll only be a handful up. Like the day previous to when I'm recording this video, there was 3 up, so I could get 75 of the shards, but that wouldn't be 1 additional key. But there is an additional way on top of this to get even more shards, because every single one of these coffer keys you use at the end of a delve will also give you an item called a Radiant Echo. Now you use this Radiant Echo on these World Soul memories that will be up in one of the zones of the War Within. So in one of the zones, you'll see these 2 little symbols. They kind of look like they belong in like BFA or something, but there are these 2 circles. They'll say World Soul Memories, and that's an event you go use these Radiant Echoes on. And basically all you're doing in those events is you're going in, you're killing enemies or interacting with different things like a ore deposit. And once you enter these World Soul Memories and use a Radiant Echo, you only have 5 minutes, and your whole objective is to increase the score that's at the top of your screen. Now you're primarily going to be doing this by farming enemies. So that also means that you're going to want to look for a group to do this World Soul Memory, because you could join a 40-man raid. Everybody could be in that World Soul Memory with you. And even though you have to keep tagging all the different enemies to get score, obviously if there's 40 people there all killing everything super quickly, you're going to get a lot more score. And it seems that 800 score gives you the most amount of loot you can possibly get from these World Soul Memories. And all you're going to be getting from these World Soul Memories is Valor Stones and coffer key fragments. And also, when entering a World Soul Memory, you have the option of using 1 Radiant Echo or 5 Radiant Echoes. Now, this is just a time saver, because if you use 5, you'll just get 5 times the rewards. If you use 1, you'll just get the normal rewards. So if you can save up until 5, I'd recommend doing that. It'll save you quite a bit of time. But let's say you have some coffer key shards and you want to go do another run for that day, you could go do 1 Radiant Echo, get enough extra, and go do another bountiful run and use another coffer key. But if you save up to 5 Radiant Echoes, you join a raid group to go in and get that 800 score, you will be getting 400 Valor Stones and 225 coffer key shard. That's for the 5 Radiant Echoes, and that's getting the max amount of rewards, which seems to be 800 score in the World Soul Memory. So World Quests and using your Radiant Echoes on the World Soul Memory event is the 2 additional ways that you can get coffer key shards to get more coffer keys to run even more bountiful delves. And also keep in mind, you can only run 4 bountiful delves every day. There'll be 1 up in each zone that cycles every single day. So if you have a ton of keys saved up, you can do 4 bountiful delves every single day. But that's pretty much the entirety of the delving journey if you're primarily trying to be efficient and get as much gear as you possibly can from these delves. If you're a fully solo player and you still just want to go do delves completely solo, you want to try to complete all the delves on tier 8 completely solo or even the higher tiers, you can go ahead and do that. It's just going to be less efficient. If you complete the delves as a solo, even if you're less efficient, you're still pretty much going to be getting the same loot. You're still going to be getting the same gear drops, the same possible chests, the same chance at Delver's bounty maps. You're still going to be getting pretty much the same loot. It'll just be less efficient and generally a lot more difficult than just getting in a group and getting these bountiful delves done much more quickly and much more efficiently. But that's all I want to go over, so thanks for watching.